Welcome to the BeWell program. I'm Dr. Ted Bender, clinical psychologist and the CEO of the BeWell Network. My goal in this program is to educate the public about mental health. If you or a loved one is struggling, please visit BeWellRecovery.com. Our number is 866-317-8395. There is help for the many life obstacles we endure. Today, I couldn't be more pleased to interview comedian and actor Jamie Kennedy. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Dude, what's up?
So, you have been in all kinds of awesome movies like Scream, Malibu's Most Wanted, The Jamie Kennedy Experience, Romeo and Juliet, and so much more. But I still think to this day that Scream is one of the best ever, the first Scream movie. And I also think that the opening scene to Scream with Drew Barrymore was the best opening to any horror movie of all time. Thoughts, comments on that specific statement?
I would say Scream is incredible. I'm lucky to be in it, and I would concur that it is one of the best of all time, and the opening scene might be the best of all time.
I totally agree.
And it was a big shocker when it happened, and no one expected Drew to go out. So it was great.
But your success continues as a comic and actor. You're regularly selling out shows at the Laugh Factory and other venues. And but you do also like to advocate for mental health and call out any issues with society with your humor on stage and as a comedian. So what do you see as a top challenge to people's mental health issues today?
How honest can I be?
As honest as you want.
Well, I'll be light. Look, people are losing it.
You're right.
No, they're insane. Like, people are insane. Last night, I had a guy holler at me as he was parking, directing traffic, pretty aggressively. Like, guys usually don't holler at other guys. Mm-hmm. And I was like, "Hey, man, you know, we're just driving here, bro. Like, chill." And he was like really mad. And I'm seeing more and more people just short-tempered, losing it, and there's a lot of things I'll say. I'll keep it chill for you, but the last 2.5 years have twisted our society into a pretzel.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things is we're inundated with information.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and now I don't remember in my lifetime if we've ever been this polarized of people like blah 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 and no and blah blah blah. So I think our phones, I think our internets, I think all the electronics, I think a lot more. I think the number one thing is we're inundated with information between Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, TV, news, opinions. Everybody's got an opinion. Everybody can be heard. Twitter, and it's a lot.
You said a couple things there I want to touch on. You're absolutely right about the last 2.5 years.
Yeah.
The science is showing that the increase in anxiety symptoms and depression and suicidality and overdose death has skyrocketed through the pandemic, which when you think about it is not that surprising, because if you put the perfect conditions together for all of that to get worse, it would be economic downturn and isolation from society, which the pandemic caused. We're just now really starting to see what some of those ramifications are. And it's interesting that you mentioned the internet and our cell phones and everything too, because there's more and more research pouring out in the scientific community every single day about the connection between screen time, especially in teens, screen time, and really significant, terrible outcomes later on, whether that's increased suicidality or depression or anxiety. So all that kind of happening at once, leading to that guy screaming, directing traffic on the street, kind of what we're seeing on a day-to-day basis.
And another thing is, here, because you're a psychologist.
Yeah.
It's poor. I did a thing last week, and I was with the military, and I love the military because they say, what we do is, and I said, I had a situation, and they go, yeah. I love working with them because they have something called situational awareness. And what a lot of people in our society do not have is poor situational awareness and terrible enabling. So there's a lot of people that have bad behavior, they're losing their mind, and then they're enabled by other people, and it just gets worse. That's why we see these rash of outbreaks of people freaking out in stores, and I want my ball, mommy. It's like the non-adult behavior. And so that's getting more. I don't know if it's always been there. I'm sure it has, but I'm seeing it more because of phones. But people, and it's not going to get better. People are losing it, and they're getting more separated, and it's fascinating.
And you're right too. Enabling is a big part of the whole cycle of addiction in the first place. Like when you have someone who is addicted to whatever substance, you can almost always find multiple people in their lives that are unknowingly or knowingly enabling that addiction and continuing to fuel it.
And also, food. People eat terribly, and it's not their fault. There's a ton of bad food. There's only about 20 things you should really eat, in my opinion, to be healthy.
You're probably right.
Yeah, and the rest of it is just
processed garbage.
Yeah. There's a great article about the store. If you go into the store, never go in the store. Always go around the edges.
Really?
That's where all the fresh fruit is. That's where all the right vegetables are. That's where all the fats and the meats and the cheeses are, and the yogurts. That's about it. And everything else in the middle is just what we call a work.
I've only been in California for about a year and a half, and we all know that California is very pro-cannabis. And you mentioned the vapes, too. I can't tell.
The vape's not just with weed.
The
cigarette. I think weed is probably better than alcohol, but also you want to have a clear mind no matter what you're doing.
I think what I was going to say is that I can't even tell if people are walking around vaping all the time. I can't tell if it's marijuana or it's nicotine or both, but people do it around here like either or is totally fine and totally acceptable. I think what you're getting at, too, is the research on vaping isn't really good. It's still in the early stages. But what it does to the body, what it does to the lungs, it is a terrible addiction. I agree with you.
But that is there's an example. That's a huge corporation. Whoever owns the vape is just giving it and making it look cute and fun, so they're getting teenagers hooked on it. Adults it's completely addictive. I know people that are very wealthy in life that vape.
Yeah.
They can't put it down. It's like, are you? So it's a problem.
Yeah, the nicotine content's very high. And Juul, the company Juul, just got in big trouble.
And they're still doing it. So that's just basically, it's stuff like that that's screwing our society up. I'm trying to not curse. Because they're basically throwing terrible stuff at human beings, and human beings are consuming it.
It makes a lot of money.
Yeah, so one of the reasons is our priorities are screwed as a society because people like that are getting away with bad stuff.
I really do agree with a lot of things you're saying. We are inundated with information. Back to Scream, when that came out, the call was coming from inside the house. It was a phone on a wall. My kids don't even understand that. They still want to know what version of the iPhone I had when I was a kid. I'm like, oh, we didn't have that. What about the internet? There was no internet.
Yeah.
Now you're right. It's nonstop. I have 75 notifications on my phone probably in the last 10 minutes. Right? It's nonstop. We are polarized as a nation. We've gotten to the point now where our life expectancy in this country, which has been rising for many years, is actually turning downwards for the first time.
Really?
Because so many people are dying from overdose death, and the suicide rates have skyrocketed so much that we have really taken a step back as a society when it comes to this stuff. And it's, like you said, just getting worse.
Well, I forgot to add this too, is our moral compass is decimated.
Certainly.
And I'm not like a prude or anything, and I believe have fun. But it's different than it was. I feel like sex is everywhere, and not cute, winking, making a cute reference to sex. It's graphic, people on Instagram and online, and it's constantly everywhere. It's glorified, and then violence, horrific violence is on these platforms that you don't even want to watch, and you see different things. And I feel people don't understand the value of human life anymore. I don't feel they understand the value of classiness anymore, and it's twisted because it's all about, if you get in a narcissistic society, which we all have narcissism. I'll say for myself, there's a very good chance that I'm a narcissist. But what I call myself is an empathetic narcissist. Meaning, I love attention. but I don't want to hurt you to get it. And I think that we are breeding into this. There's a coldness and just like attention is almost like a vape.
Likes, clicks,
Yeah.
shares.
And people will do anything.
Yeah.
They'll do anything. Like, it used to be like, yo, you a good tap dancer? Are you funny? Are you good at throwing a football? Are you a good actress? Whatever. Now it's just like,
Are you good at getting attention? You know, another thing I was thinking about before I had the chance to bring you on today is comedy clubs. So I used to be a restaurant manager inside of a hotel
you did?
a long time ago,
What city?
and in Tallahassee, Florida.
Oh, what's up, dude?
We had a comedy club on Saturdays.
Called
I
what?
can't remember. I knew you were going to ask that.
How close were you to, what's the big city?
Tallahassee, the next biggest city over is like Pensacola or Jacksonville the other way.
Yeah, I had some good times in
Yeah,
Jacksonville.
and the shows were great. We had some big names there, and we had a 2 or 3 drink minimum. 2 or 3 drink minimum was never a problem because most people were at 6 to 7, 8 drinks.
Yeah.
And I saw some of the comedians have a rough time sometimes because the people that were really just intoxicated and wasted were just really giving them a hard time. Some of them handled it brilliantly, and I'm sure you have a ton of experience with. What do you see in those shows? Are people going overboard? Have you experienced anything like what I was just describing?
Well, I posted a clip recently. Like, you can go on my Instagram.
Yeah, I did.
Look at
I
it.
saw that one. That's why I
And,
was asking about it.
Well, yeah, like comedy used to be you were just entertaining and be funny, and then people consume it. But now it's like slowly and more you're becoming a babysitter.
Huh.
And this is the issue with comedy, where we're looked upon to provide you your escape, which is good, and fun, which is good. So I posted a clip recently of a guy. He seemed like a sweet guy. He was a plumber. He told me he was a plumber. And he was completely wasted. I just like, when people go to a comedy club, it is some kind of get out of jail free card for what we call normal behavior in society. Like, they couldn't go to the post office wasted. You can't go on an airplane wasted. You can't teach wasted. But you can come to a comedy club and get a shit face, as you said. So this guy was twisted up. He didn't know how to stop. He came on stage. He was harmless because he was so drunk. And then
He actually came on stage.
Yeah, he came on stage and he just wanted to tell me more stuff on stage. Like, his situational awareness
was 0.
Yeah. So it's getting worse. Like, I think alcohol again is I liked it and I haven't drank in a while, and I'm not saying it's bad. Like, you can do your thing, but for me, I think that it tends to go in a negative direction for a lot of people. And I think that the alcohol is not great, and people drink too much of it, and it's not usually a positive outcome.
You mentioned having to be a babysitter. Did you mean that you kind of almost have to manage the crowd in a way?
Yeah.
Because of the alcohol, do you think, or just generally?
Well, the alcohol makes them uninhibited.
Right.
And then all of their problems start coming out during my show.
Interesting.
And it's like, well, you're the comedian, make me feel better. And it's like, all right, so now I'm your psychologist.
The
I'm your
Prozac.
teacher. Yeah, I'm your babysitter, and I'm supposed to be funny. So, and it's getting worse because people are more entitled and they're more enabled, and they tweet something and it gets 10 retweets and they're smart.
Yeah.
And I understand, like, my whole saying is everybody has a voice, but not everybody deserves one.
Yeah.
Ooh, too far. I mean, some people are just ill-informed, man.
Did you see a change in that kind of behavior in your shows before the pandemic to now?
Actually, it's different than what you think. The pandemic has made me much more humbled. I'm like, man, I'm really grateful to be able to do what I do. I'm grateful to breathe air.
Yeah.
And then also, the pandemic has, prioritized. I don't want to waste time.
Yeah.
I'm starting to get a little bit back on my BS train. I'm like, I got to stop that. Like, right after the pandemic, it's not even really over, whatever. You take stock of everything, how important, what's important to you.
Agreed.
And I think that people collectively in the collective unconscious have been doing that, and they're more grateful. So shows have been really great.
Interesting.
And people are like, wow, I love to get out. I love to laugh. And I'm like, I love to make you laugh and think. So it's been good.
Oh, good.
But there are going to be times where people are, 3 sheets deep.
Sure.
But it has. I think it's been more grateful.
You know, let's switch gears a little bit. One of the the things I'm most grateful for you coming on the show is that we are always trying to reduce the stigma surrounding mental health and substance use disorder, and get people to talk about it just like they would if they had a broken arm or cancer or a kidney stone. No difference. And you being here today helps with that. I always wonder, you've
Because I'm the resident psycho.
You've been you've been in the Hollywood scene for so many years, and I'm sure you've witnessed and seen a lot. Can you talk a little bit about how you've seen substance use disorders and/or mental health problems in your Hollywood experience, maybe with other people? No need to name names or anything like that. But how has it affected other people? How has it affected their work? Have you known anyone or lost anyone to the disease of addiction or anything on that topic?
I mean that's a series of a podcast.
Yeah. Probably right.
I'm not even gonna go to addiction yet. I just in terms of I think it was Lindsay Lohan. She said something so brilliant. I think she said this. She said, Hollywood doesn't create who you are. It just gives you license when you're successful to be who you are. So if you love bonbons and you can't eat a bonbon because you don't have enough money, when you make $100,000 a day, you can probably eat 100 bonbons, and that might not be good for you. So in terms of a nutshell, just addiction with substances put aside, Hollywood is the great escape. So when you come here, most people, there's going to be a lot of people that lie and are into self-delusion, is why it is such a twisted environment. And it's beautiful, but it's twisted because it's full of people that are lacking something. Very few people come to Hollywood. They say they want to be an artist and all this stuff, but they're not really being honest with you. They have something wrong with, not wrong, but something off in their personality that they need to be fulfilled. So whether you need attention from an audience, whether you need validation on screen, whether you need... There are a lot of creative people, and I'm not saying you can't be creative and a little twisted. What I'm saying is people come and they're broken. That is what I believe, to be very honest. There's only a few people I can name that I don't know that I kind of know that aren't broken, and it's very rare. And I don't mean in a bad way.
Yeah, I got you.
I mean I felt like an unheard prophet in my house. You know what I mean? I was the youngest of 6 kids. I probably wasn't planned. My parents loved me, but they were older, and I was like listening to Eddie Murphy, and they're like, "What is that? This guy's cursing." I'm like, "He's brilliant." And so I would do funny stuff in school, and I got validation, and I'm like, I'm not getting this in my kitchen. Yeah. I'm gonna go into the world. So, and then a lot of things that come with it, but I've seen tons of stuff, and the issue is that people come here and they want to have a dream, and they do have some brokenness, which is okay. But what the problem is, the message out of Hollywood is, hey, we have it all together.
Yeah.
And that's lies. And now with the new way the world is, with the new social media and stuff, people share and share and share to the point that they overshare. And so we've gone overcorrected. So now now everything's a thing. So mental addiction, which is a real issue, everyone is like, if something happens to them, I have this or I have that. At some point, you have to be able to take responsibility and say, okay, maybe I might have this, but I have a little bit of bad behavior. So again, I've seen, there's tons. There's narcissists. There's people that get taken advantage of. There's other people that take advantage of. There's drugs. There's booze. There's sex. There's tons of it.
What's so interesting for me being a behavioral psychologist, like when I was talking to NBA champion John Sally a couple weeks ago, we were talking. I asked him kind of a similar question in the sports world, right?
Very similar to Hollywood.
It is, right? And I asked him, I was like, to be in the NBA, you are the best of the best, not just in the U.S., but in the world.
Yeah.
And the training and what it takes to get to that level. I was very curious, how you could possibly be so dedicated, so talented, and work so hard, yet have undiagnosed bipolar disorder or some form of addiction. And I think about it very similarly in Hollywood with really successful people like yourself. Like you have this inane talent that you obviously honed over many decades and worked super hard to get to where you are. And looking at Hollywood as a whole, how do they get to that level of notoriety and success and still have these underlying massive issues, whether it's mental health or substance abuse? It never makes sense to me how those things can go together.
Why?
I don't know.
You're a psychologist. That makes complete sense.
It's fascinating to me, though, that you can achieve that at the same time.
Well, I mean, I hate to say this, but do you know that there is something, I don't know exactly, but like comedians and serial killers, I'm not joking, are like 2 chromosomes off or something.
Please explain that.
You can look it up. There's very similar character traits. And also, people that drink black coffee are usually sociopaths.
Uh-oh.
You can look this up. So, I actually disagree with you because I don't think, like, first of all, to be successful in something, like Madonna had a great quote, she says, anyone who has a fallback plan will never make it because it takes 25 hours a day, 8 days a week to become a global superstar.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
And so exactly, and that's why she's Madonna, right? Mm-hmm. So if you have an unsatiable drive, and you have these, what you say, like you have these talents that you feel you have to show, and then you get validation for it, and then it feeds the machine, and then you want more. Yeah. So there's like a form of addiction.
Yeah.
And so, you can go, and as long as you are healthy, you can go a long time. And even if you're not healthy, you can have people that are enablers, and they're making sure. I mean, there's a ton of people that have literally wheeled out, bro, to like perform and then wheeled back in. There's versions of that.
That's exactly what John said, actually.
100%.
He mentioned the enabling piece.
Oh, dude, there's tons of people that got hands in the pockets, and you're like, what do you do for me again?
Yeah.
And it's like, I can't tell you how many times, just me, and I've done good, that people have misappropriated 30,000.
Whoops.
And you're like, what was that for? So it's like, yeah, and then eventually you got to a place, you have to keep your circle super small, and you have to be super healthy, and you have to have super positivity, but you also have to not have enablers. And there's a difference. People in the normal world, which I say squares, and I don't mean that as a diss, but I mean that as like the street term, because people get squares because they don't understand certain psychology within it. And what I mean by that is, if people who are in our business, like John or whatever, and you get famous and you have this stuff happening, that if you have people around you that are positive with you, that go, oh, you have a bunch of sycophants, ass kissers. And it's like, there are people like that. But those are people that are doing that. So if every day you got $1,000 off me and you kept me on heroin, that's a sycophant. And I go, is heroin bad? And you're like, no, Jamie, it's great. You're good. Keep doing it because you're getting your cut. That's a sycophant. But people going, hey, how was that? I did that scene. You think it was good? It was good. Listen, you can try to do this, but it was good. Like, that's people that don't care about you. Those are what we call the wind beneath the wings. So there's a big difference. And the normal world will just, if you have a good group of people around you, sometimes they'll try to take that down. And there's all different levels of this. But yes, the mental health is not the best in Hollywood. But again, I don't like when people crap on Hollywood, even though there's a lot of things to crap on. Because I can point to a lot of different, I can point to the medical field. There's a lot of stuff happening. I can point to academia. So I've seen this in other fields.
No, you're absolutely right. It's not localized to one area.
Yeah. Going back to comedy, that's why people get so drunk, because they can't do it at their job.
Release.
So we need healthiness throughout our week.
See, I think 2 things that I wanted to mention, especially for our audience to hear, is the enabling piece first.
Oh, I hate enablers.
Yeah. So when it comes to addiction, especially, and mental health, one thing that I've found working with families of people suffering from addiction, especially, is that you usually have people who are enabling the addiction, giving you money to buy drugs, whether they realize it or not.
Just the wrong reinforcement.
Exactly. The wrong reinforcement. A lot of times family members don't even know they're doing it, right? And they have to be educated on it. Sometimes they do. And the other thing too you mentioned is that this doesn't discriminate to any one area. Yes, there's mental health and drug problems in Hollywood, but there's mental health and drug problems in the medical field and hospitals, and doctors have really high suicide rates. We're seeing it, and it doesn't discriminate. Is what I'm trying to say.
Comment on that is, again, I'm not a doctor, but I've seen firsthand people being on. I want to say the drugs, but I'm not going to say the drugs. On prescribed drugs. That's another big problem. Medical drugs for people's mental health. I've seen people have bad thoughts.
Oh yeah, benzodiazepines are a bad one.
Wellbutrin. I'm sorry, I've seen it.
Yeah, and
you can take it out if you want.
And you'd be surprised how many people I've worked with that have severe addiction who come to me for treatment for alcohol, but want to stay on the Xanax because it's prescribed medicine, even though you're taking half the bottle every day.
Not good.
Yeah. It's a very cunning and baffling illness. You travel a lot for comedy.
Yeah.
You've done tons of appearances. You've met tons and tons of people. Have you ever had an experience with maybe a fan that went a little overboard, or I don't want to say obsessed, but ever have an experience like that?
All the time.
All right, let me rephrase. Has it got to the point where it ever made you feel nervous or worried, or was it ever traumatic?
I've been pretty lucky.
Yeah.
I've definitely had some people that were into me, but nothing ever bad. But there's definitely people that don't understand the spatial awareness and how it's like I can only give you X amount of my time.
Yeah.
And at some point I gotta not give you the time. But I've been very lucky in terms of nothing too wild, but positive passion. How about that?
I like that.
You know what I'm saying?
Your dad was a vet, right?
Yeah, he did. I don't know what war, but he was in the Navy for like 6 years.
Yeah, your dad was a military man. I've spent a lot of time working with the military and vets coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, 10 years ago, and I worked as a military suicide researcher a lot. And one of the passions I have is working with people with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and we also see co-occurring, drug addiction and substance use disorders that go along with that. So have you seen a lot of post-traumatic stress disorder in your career or during your career or in this industry?
Definitely with military people. The most rewarding shows will be, shows overseas or, I did a tour here for all the bases. So I always ask them, I say, how you doing? And they tell me, and they're very, very appreciative, and, they need the correct treatment because it's so simple to understand. The stuff they've seen is not normal.
No, you're right.
And so then they're just supposed to go back into society and go meet their friend for a hamburger. It's not how it works. And so I have seen it, but definitely I've seen PTSD in Hollywood, which is own versions of different people who've had traumatic experiences. But I always give the military the most.
I love that, and thank you for doing that. When I've worked with vets and people that were currently in the military, I always tell them that what you just said basically is that the things that they're experiencing are a normal experience to a very abnormal situation, meaning they went through hell, which is not normal, and all the symptoms that they're experiencing they brought back with them. That's a normal reaction to the hell that they went through.
Yeah, I had a guy I've talked to, who's a comedian, who was in Afghanistan last year in Kabul, and he was one of the guys they took the baby. The lady said take the baby, and he took the baby and put it to safety. The baby got on the plane, the mom didn't.
That was a pretty big story.
That was him. So I mean, that's just he saved the baby.
That's gut wrenching.
Yeah. But that's what these guys. And listen, that's not taken away from other people's PTSD because the military sees the intense stuff, and there's a lot of people with life PTSD. So, whatever your form is, people get it more than they realize.
Any advice for people who are struggling, having a difficult time? Jamie Kennedy's life advice.
This is gonna sound really hippie, and I'm not trying to be, but there's all these little psychology things you can look at, but the first thing you got to do is you got to understand what you're eating. Okay, you got to look at your drugs, get off your prescribed drugs, try to be clear-minded, try not to vape or anything for a while, try not to drink, and get in the sun. I believe the sun has a lot of healing properties. I know that sounds hippie. Movement, like get out there, take a hike. Cities are known because of square corners to make us feel in danger, and like going through forest and beaches make us feel happier. I know that sounds hippie-ish. Just start with that, and start with just breathing, and taking a little bit of yoga. This stuff does wonders for me.
Agreed. Mindfulness-based meditation, yoga, deep breathing exercise. I totally agree with getting out too.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I love most about California, we have some of the most beautiful walking trails and beaches and forests around.
Be active, and then have at least one person in your life. Even if you don't, try to find that one person that will talk to you. Don't talk their ear off, but just say, I need a friend.
Upcoming shows, anything you want to tell us about coming up that we should be excited about?
Yeah, I got lots of stuff. You can go to my website, jamiekennedy.com. I have a movie I did called Don't Suck, which is a horror comedy. It sounds crazy. I think it's going to come out sometime March 2023. We're not sure what platform yet, but
Great.
Got a ton of shows coming up. I've got Chicago tomorrow, and then I have Palm Springs, and then Tampa Bay, Florida. So just go to my website. You can see it there.
Great. Jamie, thank you so much for coming on the show. So
Thanks,
nice to meet you and share
really
this time
appreciate
with
you, man.
I appreciate you
Thank
as
you
well.
for having me.
I want to thank Jamie Kennedy again for being on the show today. For those of you who are listening or maybe struggling with mental health disorder or substance use disorder, please go to BeWellRecovery.com. We're here for you 24/7. We can help you. You can have a better life. Until next time, I'm Dr. Ted Bender. Be well.